In the last lesson, we introduced the qualitative risk register and learnt how to add risk events to our model. In this lesson, we will introduce and navigate the quantitative risk register. Now we'll look at the quantitative side of the risk register. If you previously closed the file, reopen it by selecting File Open or File Open Recent from the top menu. If the risk register is not open, click on the Risk Register icon on the top toolbar, and the saved risk register will open. If you didn't save your register, navigate to the risk register file and open it. Once the risk register window has opened, select the Quantitative tab at the top of the risk register window. There you will see all of the discrete risks that we covered under the qualitative section. What we are going to do is take our defined risks and turn them into probabilistic activities. In other words, if a risk event happens, it will become an activity. Alternatively, if it doesn't happen, it will have no impact. So if you look at the top of the quantitative window, you will see two tabs, pre-mitigated and post-mitigated scenarios. A pre-mitigated scenario is where we leave the risk unaffected, and a post-mitigated scenario is where we have introduced mitigation steps into our model. Now at this stage of an analysis, I prefer to focus on a pre-mitigated scenario only, and then look at post-mitigation scenarios directly in the Gantt chart after examining different scenarios with my project team. Our pre-mitigated risks are effectively turned into activities that can be modified in the Gantt chart. If we run a post-mitigation scenario at this stage, we are only able to do it once, whereas if we do it at a later stage, we can run a number of different scenarios. Remember, the reason for running our pre-mitigation scenario is so that we can come up with a post-mitigation strategy. So, at the top, we have the Risk View and the Task View tabs. Select the Risk View and you will see all of the risk IDs listed in the left-hand pane. To the right of the ID, there is a column that indicates where the risk is a threat or opportunity. Next to that is the risk title. Now let's look at the quantified and probabilities columns. You will see that all of the boxes are unchecked and the probabilities are grayed out. First, we'll enter a dummy risk, so move to the bottom of the table and type in dummy and press enter. You'll see that it is automatically quantified with a probability of 85%. So what does this mean? Where we have unchecked boxes, it tells us that the probabilities for each risk were calculated in the qualitative section and cannot be modified. However, if we were to check the quantified boxes, we would be able to overwrite the previously calculated probability in the qualitative section. Let's work through an example. The last column header shows the links between all of our risks and impacted tasks. So how do we link risks to activities? Let's select Contract Delay and decide which activities it would link to in the schedule. This activity is linked finish to start after activity A030, characterization. In the right-hand pane, you will note that characterization is checked. Let's link contract delay to another activity. So, highlight contract delay and check A080, and you will see the activity number appear under the impacted tasks column. If you then look at the bottom window, you will see the impacted activities with their schedule and cost impacts. Uncheck the linked activity 080 again, and you'll see that A080 has gone from the bottom window. Now, in the bottom window, you will note that the schedule and cost distributions are grayed out, so they cannot be modified. Let's go ahead and quantify contract delay. We'll check the box and leave its probability as 60%. With contract delay still highlighted, you will see that we can now change the distribution for characterization in the bottom window. Then, let's change the schedule distribution to 20, 35, 55. Don't change the cost distribution. If you have a number of impacted tasks in the bottom window, you can also change the correlation and existence between them. Now, before we move on to run a quantitative analysis, we would fine-tune all of our risks to make sure that we are happy with our cost and schedule assumptions. I often think of the qualitative side as the window for developing our risks and probabilities, whereas the quantitative side would be where I would carry out any fine-tuning with the project team. Now, in the top left-hand pane, click on a risk that has multiple impacted activities. So, we highlight key resource unavailable and look at correlation in the bottom window for the 3 impacted activities. Now, all correlation options are checked, and this indicates 100% correlation. If any of the impacted activities are not correlated with the risk, then we would uncheck the event existence. If their ranges are not correlated, then uncheck the impact ranges. Let's just leave all the options selected. Now, if we select the task view, we'll have the tasks on the left-hand side. Select activity A130, external approvals, and you will see 2 highlighted risks are selected in the right-hand window that are linked to it. If you look at the bottom window, you will also see the same risks with their distributions grayed out. Now look at the right of the bottom window and you will see the option for linking these risks in series with the external approvals. By default, Primavera Risk automatically links risks in parallel, but this is not always the case, so you may want to link them in series. For example, if design changes happens after external approvals, then you would link it in series. Lastly, in the right-hand window, quantify the risk for design changes, and you will see that you are now able to edit the distributions for this risk in the bottom window. Uncheck this risk again. One last point. If you look at the risk view and the task view tabs, you will see that you have the option to search for or filter your activities to suit your requirements. Before closing the risk register, click the tab for risk view, then highlight the dummy risk. Press delete on your keyboard to delete it. A warning message will pop up that asks you to confirm the deletion. Click yes. Click the top right-hand cross on the risk register window to close the risk register. If you receive a warning message, click yes so that you save the risk register. So in this lesson, we learned how to understand the quantitative risk register. Went through the steps to add and map discrete risk events to our schedule. In the next lesson, we will learn how to print, save, and create risk reports. In the last lesson, we learned how to understand the quantitative risk register. In this lesson, we will learn how to print risk reports, save risk reports, and create custom risk reports. If you previously closed the file, reopen it by selecting File Open or File Open Recent from the top menu. Click on the Risk Register icon on the top toolbar, and the saved risk register will open. Now we'll look at our reporting options for our risk register. So from the risk register menu, click Reports, and you will see 3 reporting options in the menu drop-down. They are Risk Matrix, Risk Scoring, and Report Manager. Select the Risk Matrix report. The report will show up in the report viewer and shows the pre- and post-mitigated positions for each risk. It is a standard report and cannot be modified. However, the report can be printed or exported to Microsoft Word. Close this window. Now select Reports, Risk Scoring. This report gives you details of your scoring system. It is also a standard report and cannot be modified, so close the window. This time, select Reports, Report Manager, and the Report Manager window will open. In the left pane, you will see a number of predefined reports. To open a predefined report, you would highlight a specific title, Then click the Publish button at the top of the right pane. We're going to build a simple report, so select the New button in the right pane. Give it a file name, Test Report, and click Save. The Report Builder window will now open. You'll see 3 tabs at the top: Layout, Filter, and Tabular fields. If you click on the Layout tab, you'll find a number of options for creating your report. At the top, there's a standard layout with checkboxes for different checkbox options. Next, there is the option for creating a tabular report. It also has some checkbox options. Lastly, there is the option for creating a custom layout. You can use previously created style sheets. So let's create a simple report with a tabular layout and leave both of the options checked. Then click the Filter tab and let's create a filter to only show risk owners TR and BJ. In the field area, click the drop down and you'll notice a lot of options. Select risk.owner. Then select equals for the operator and select the initials TR from the drop down menu. So in the first field, the risk owner has the initials TR. We'll add another one. In the logic field, select OR. Then under Field, select Risk Owner again, and this time make it equal to BJ. Now we want to select our tabular fields, so select the Tabular Fields tab. A new report window will open up. In the top drop-down menu, select Risk, and all of the available heading options will be shown in the left pane. To make things simple, just click the double arrow at the top between the panes, and all of the options will move over to the right pane. Next, go back to the drop-down menu and select Response Action. This time we'll just select a couple of headings. Highlight Description and click the single arrow to move it over to the right pane. Do the same for Start Date. Finally, select Task Impact from the drop-down menu. I'll just move them all over to the right by clicking the top double arrow button. Once we've added all the fields that we want, click the Build Report button in the bottom right-hand corner. Next, you'll see a tabular risk report based on all the information I've provided for owners TR and BJ. The report window will open and will display all of the fields you selected. You'll see the filtered details for risks, mitigation actions, and task impacts. From here, you can print or save this report. Close this window, then close the Report Builder window. Click the top right-hand cross on the Risk Register window to close the Risk Register. If you receive a warning message, click Yes so that you save the Risk Register. In this lesson, we learned how to print risk reports, save risk reports, and create custom risk reports. In the next lesson, we will build our impacted risk model. In the last lesson, we learned how to print risk reports, save risk reports, and create custom risk reports. In this lesson, we will learn how to build our impacted risk model, run a test risk analysis, and view our first distribution histogram. If you previously closed the file, reopen it by selecting File Open or File Open Recent from the top menu. Now that we've defined our schedule risks, we want to find out what the true impact of those risks would be to the schedule. So we need to merge our risks with the schedule. We do this by building pre- and post-mitigated risk schedules. To merge our risks with the schedule, we would open the Risk Register by clicking Risk from the top menu and selecting Register from the drop-down menu. In the Risk Register window, click Tools, Build Impacted Risk Plans. I prefer to bypass all of these menus and simply click the icon for Build Impacted Risk Plan from the top toolbar. A window will open that allows you to build pre- and post-mitigated risk plans. You can also choose to ignore risks by deselecting their checkbox. This option is useful when running different scenarios to determine the impact of certain selected risks on the schedule. Since we have put post-mitigation steps into our model, we'll build our risk plan for both pre- and post-mitigated schedules. Usually, I would only initially build the pre-mitigated schedule because that is where we are at this particular moment in time. I would build a post-mitigated schedule later, once all mitigation measures have been evaluated and added to our risks. But this really depends on what we're trying to show and how much post-mitigation is available. So, to build our impacted risk plan, make sure that pre- and post-mitigated is selected. We have our open and proposed risks, so make sure that they are all selected for now, then click Build in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, Primavera Risk has taken all of our risk events and turned them into activities. So if you click on the top window menu, you will see that we have 3 files that are open. Firstly, we have our original plan. This plan has all of the risks defined, but none of the risks have been incorporated into our plan. If you selected it, you would see that it shows our original plan. If you now select the pre-mitigated plan, you will see that our risks have been turned into activities. If you select the contract delay risk and then select the Links tab in the bottom window, you will see that it is linked by finish to start to characterization as per our risk mapping. So, if you then look at characterization, you will see that contract delay is a successor by a finish to start link. Now, what Primavera Risk has done is to remove the link from the original characterization activity and create a new summary task for characterization. By doing this, the original predecessor and the original successors will pass through this summary task. The reason that Primavera Risk did this was to provide a slice and dice capability. For example, if we looked at a tornado chart, we could ask if it was the activity, the risk, or a combination of the two that had the impact. You will note that the original activity and risk event are no longer fully linked within the schedule, and this might have been an oversight when the program was developed. If you feel that links are necessary, you would have to add them manually to the schedule. So let's look at the contract delay activity. It's one of our risks. It has 0 days duration with 60% probability of recurrence. If you look at the bottom window, select the Risk and Uncertainty tab in the bottom window, then select Duration Uncertainty tab, and you'll see that it is 20 to 55 days. It's 0 days by default, so it doesn't really exist. However, when it does occur, it's 20 to 55 days. So if we look at the existence risk, we'll see that the probability that this task exists is 60%. We are keeping it linked to other tasks, so when it doesn't occur, it is ignored. If you selected the other option, it would remove links to the other tasks, and the task would be ignored. So let's run a risk analysis. Click Risk, Run Risk Analysis from the top menu, and the Risk Analysis window will open. You could also select the icon that looks like a dice from the top toolbar, or you can simply press F10. Here you will be able to set the number of iterations, so a good starting number is 1,000 iterations. Make sure that you have checked the boxes to show step-through analysis and distribution graph. For now, don't worry about the options. Click Analyze and the Risk Analysis Progress window will open. Let's step through our analysis, so click Step. On the first iteration, contract delay did not push out at all. Click Step again, and this time contract delay actually shortened by a few days. Click Step one more time, and this time it pushed out to 32 days. Then you will see that the logic through the summary bar pushed out its successors, pre-design and optioneering, and feasibility and design. Click Step again, and this time the risk didn't push out, so all the activities moved back to their original positions. Click Step again, and this time it pushed out to 34 days. If we click Step 3 more times, the risk moves out to 40 days on the 3rd click. So what this is telling us is that contract delay is going to occur in our schedule, but when it occurs, it's going to push activities out, but it only has a 60% chance of occurring. Now click Complete to finish the 1,000 iterations. The distribution histogram will now appear. Now click on A030 in the left-hand pane. What we're seeing from the distribution graph or histogram is a big spike on the left. From that, you'll see that 40% of the time the iterations landed to the left. Then 60% of the iterations landed over to the center and right. So 60% of the time the risk is pushing out to the right. Click Cancel to close this graph window. Now change the existence risk in the bottom window to 20%. Then run the risk analysis again. This time you'll notice that 80% of the hits landed over to the left and only 20% are pushing out, based on that risk. So if we continue to analyze our schedule, we will be able to look at the histograms and tornado charts for, say, major milestones and identify areas of concern. Then we will start to model different scenarios and identify ways of meeting deterministic dates. Click Cancel to close our histogram window, then change the existence risk in the bottom window back to 60%. Click Save to save our model. In this lesson, we learned how to build our impacted risk model, ran a test risk analysis, viewed our first distribution histogram. In the next lesson, we will learn how to set up our risk analysis options and run a risk analysis based on these options.